There is no red, white, or blue in this country. The only color that matters is green because we live in the United Corporations of America. Salutations, Jordan Chariton live, Status Coup. Sorry we're late. It is Tuesday, February the 25th, 2025, in the United Corporations of America. Steve Grumbine of Real Progressives joining us from the Matrix. I love that background. Steve, you know the scene in The Lion Kingdom when Scar takes over the kingdom and the hyenas pounce?
Yep.
I feel like that's where
Absolutely.
we're at. I feel like that's where we're at. For you weirdos who have never watched The Lion King, that's in reference to the fallen king, Mufasa, killed by his evil brother, Scar, taking over the kingdom and it becoming very dark, and all the hyenas, which in this case are the greedy, soulless oligarchs, pouncing on the dead carcass of the American working class. You know, sometimes there's so much going on that it's really it's tough in this 24/7 news cycle. News is old within 10 seconds right now. President Musk, Vice President Trump, what they're doing, but just the sheer volume of oligarchs and what they're doing right now, basically because of Trump. Obviously, we had an oligarchy before Trump, before Trump the original, before Trump 2.0, but Trump has basically unleashed these soulless vultures. And I want to take the audience through just a couple examples that will truly make you want to punch a wall. So I hope for those of you who are watching, if you got anger management problems, this might not be the show for you. Smash the like button, share this live stream so we can get it out to more people. Also, just stunning. What's the word? Subservience, spinelessness from the Democratic Party, where the only living, breathing Democrat who's not even a Democrat actually showing some fight is an 83-year-old named Bernie Sanders. So we'll show you some more doozies for the Democratic Party in the face of this. And if we get to it, I don't know if we will. I think we're well past joking about Trump serving a third term. I think he's telling you what he plans on doing, and you should listen. Let's start, though. President Musk, apparently his unelected aides in the DOGE, I'm calling it DOGE unit, have resigned because these folks are not quite as soulless and ketamine fueled as he is. So federal technology staffers resign rather than help Musk and DOGE. 21 civil service employees have resigned from billionaire Trump advisor Musk, DOGE, saying they're refusing to use their technical expertise to, quote, dismantle critical public services. If you read in the article, quote, we swore to serve the American people and uphold our oath to the Constitution across presidential administrations, the 21 staffers wrote in a joint resignation letter, a copy of which was obtained by the AP. The employees also warned that many of those enlisted by Musk to help him slash the size of the government under Trump were political ideologues who did not have the necessary skills or experience for the task ahead. You don't say. The mass resignations of engineers, data scientists, and product managers is a temporary setback for Musk and Republican president's tech-driven purge of the federal workforce. So, yeah, they'll just replace those 21, I guess, with some other, tech pros. I'm sure there's not a lack of 20-something, in some cases, teenagers who will step in to help President Musk in his, very, very righteous endeavor to recklessly break stuff and then try to fix it afterwards, as he likes to say. Go in and break stuff. But I want to start, Steve, this clip was truly just nauseating, but it kind of signifies everything going on right now. I think that under the under the Bernie wave, you kind of had corporations over the last decade. They were still doing horrible things behind the scenes, but they kind of at least attempted to put out platitudes that they cared about workers, cared about diversity, et cetera. Now that Trump has gone in with his ally Musk, all of these oligarchs are just tossing away any pretense that they give a shit about anything other than they're actually proud to put out that they want to inflict pain on workers. Let's start. If you've ever watched Shark Tank, I love beating the shit out of this man. We've done it before, actually, you and I, with Kevin O'Leary, who's a millionaire who's not even an American, by the way. He's a Canadian. But CNN, for some reason, feels they should have him on to opine. So he was on last night with a former congressman, former Democrat. No commentary yet. Let's just play some of it, and then we'll go from there.
I am a huge advocate for giving somewhere between $400 and $450 to employees, extending the unemployment, and then letting the market do price discovery on what it should fund and what it should.
It helps to know some things. That article has the video.
That's the one I grabbed from that article. There must be two videos, so you'll need to give me a bit.
Okay. Yeah, in that article has a video at the top. I gave you the time codes. It's all right. While you're loading that, he's on with former Democrat Tom Malinowski, and Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank is saying, I don't think we've cut enough. Cut some more. And the former congressman, dime a dozen Democrats, says this is not Shark Tank. In private business, if you go in and cut, the worst thing that happens is your, app fails and, some investors are disappointed. In this case, here we go.
Well, Tom, you realize that's part of
the
frustration.
And I've been talking about that, but there is going to be a moment of truth in a couple of weeks, because we're going to have a big showdown over this when the Republicans try to fund the government. They're not going to be able to do it without the help of Democrats, and this is going to be resolved one way or another. The courts are also going to rule. I don't think the Supreme Court is going to allow the executive branch, whether it's Musk or Trump, to impound money that has been directed by the Congress of the United States. And so we're going to have to spend even more money restoring the services and the jobs and the people that have been broken by this ridiculous process. The federal government is not a company that you take over. This may work on Shark Tank, but it's not a company that you take over and dismantle and sell for parts because you want to do it in a different way. You have to do things in accordance with the Constitution.
The smile is back. I think I know why. Kevin, what's your thought?
Federal government is fat, dripping with fat. 100 years of never being scrutinized, never been examined, never looking for any efficiencies. Finally, here's an individual that's willing to do it for free with extremely great executional skills, and people are uncomfortable. Don't worry about it. The American people want to know how much waste is evident. And I think they're getting answers, and it's not good. So, Tom, I love it. You're absolutely right. But frankly, just between you and I, he's not cutting enough. In the concept of private equity, when you find a broken, bankrupt company, you look at the spreadsheet, you say, okay, this is the original cut idea. You cut 20% more, because it really hurts when you cut. You cut deep, you cut fast, you chop, you hack, and then you hire back because you don't want the trauma to everybody multiple times. I don't think he's doing enough. He's not cutting enough. We should cut more, 20% more. It's all fat. It's waste. There's so much waste in federal government. This is great for the American people.
Kevin, how can it be so great if it's to rehire? First of all, the number 20% just seems completely arbitrary. I don't know where you're basing that off of, other than it sounds like maybe an idea. But also, hold on, I want to hear your responses. But Kevin, it doesn't make efficiency sense to say I'm going to thrash and burn and then try to regrow everything and try to come back and figure out what I've done that was ineffective in the instance. Isn't an audit supposed to be, I'm going to take an assessment and then I'm going to decide the prudent course of action? Why is it while I'm auditing, I'm getting rid of, and then I'll figure out if it was a good idea? Would that work in your business?
Yes, you can't be surgically precision. There's no way to be surgically precision in this. You have to cut more because you just don't know. There's no way to do it. Remember, we've never audited government for 100 years. Never done this before. You may not like it.
Tom doesn't think that's right. Tom, what's your reaction to that? There's government's not audited.
Every agency of the federal government, it helps to know some things if we're going to have this debate. Every agency of the federal government is audited by independent inspectors general. USAID was audited over 60 times last year. And one of the first things that Donald Trump and Elon Musk did was to fire all of the inspectors general. They fired the auditors and they put in charge this billionaire with his 50 child interns who know absolutely nothing about the federal government. And Kevin, like what you're talking about, it might work for a company that makes widgets, because we can do without the company that makes widgets for a few months while you get in there and you restructure it. You can't do that to the FAA unless people aren't going to fly in planes for the next 4 or 5 months.
So there's a lot to get to, Steve. I will let you go first because I'm going to go ham.
Well, then I'll play the soft guy for a moment, which isn't my style, but I want to make sure that I don't just get known for screaming at the camera here for a minute. The fact of the matter is that so much of this, you know, from a worker standpoint, from a citizen standpoint, we are all clueless. We're like, what are they doing? So it sounds really good to a lot of people, not maybe the people that are aware, but to most people, it sounds like, man, they're auditing, they're really digging in, they're looking in, they're peeling back the curtain, they're digging into all this waste. But here's the thing. Government is the one place where we can hire people that the private sector in many cases won't hire, because private sector only hires enough people to do whatever. The rest of the people are left without a job. And then you have, let's just be honest, people that are not very good people talking about, you loser, you waste, you lazy fuck sitting on the corner. Why don't you go get a job? So the federal government created a bunch of jobs. Not all of them are intended to be the modicum of 5 nines, efficiency or anything like that. This is intended to provide people a meaningful job. Maybe it isn't the pinnacle of industry, working for Wall Street or whatever. But the idea is to give people who are not hired by the private sector, to give them jobs as well. I'm an advocate for the federal job guarantee. I'm ready for even more government jobs. But these guys, because they have a fundamental ideological predisposition to despising government, and let's be fair, I know a lot of people don't like identity politics. I'm one of the ones that doesn't like weaponized identity politics. But let's be fair. A lot of people that were not considered employable, people that they don't like, DEI hires, okay, et cetera, have found a way into the middle class through government jobs. And this is a direct assault, not only on them, but it is a direct assault in general on their hatred for government. Okay. Now I understand our government has done horrible things. I mean, you watch what we've done, the lies we've told to get us into wars with Ukraine, backing Ukraine in a situation where we used all of our NATO influence as part of our capital order to do shitty things around the world, not just over there, but down south, you name it, everywhere. Our government has screwed countries up left, right, and center. Okay, we've screwed our own poor here. So it's easy to see why people would be skeptical of government, because this government is shitty. Okay, so you can understand where it comes from. But the fact of the matter is they're acting like these jobs that were placed in there to provide people with a pathway out of poverty, to provide people with an opportunity that they would have never gotten otherwise, is an absolute assault, not just on the people they're firing, but the rest of society. Because what happens to people when they're desperate and they have no work? What do? People do whatever it takes to survive. And that might mean killing somebody. That might mean doing something that hurts other people just because they got no other choice. So I really, really, really want to be the one going full ham, but I'm going to leave you the opportunity to go full ham this time, because this is another episode of we don't understand that taxes don't fund the federal government. And it's a direct result of that entire thought process.
Okay, so I am going to go ham. Number one, I'd smash that like button, share this live stream so we can get it out to more people. We got 450 people watching. Let's get a lot more. Number one, Kevin O'Leary is not an American. And I'm fine with, undocumented immigrants in America. But he's not an American. So shut the fuck up about America. That's first of all. I cannot stand a millionaire with the net worth of $400 million who is also stolen from America, which I'm about to show you in a bit. So why CNN, and it's not just CNN, a bunch of different outlets keep having this guy on to suck off Trump and Musk. He's worth $400 million, and he wants to lecture us. You're not doing enough. Cut. We'll find out after we cut if, we did some damage. What? And I don't know if you meant it this way, but I actually disagree. A lot of people in government, the private sector is desperate to get those people who work in government, because there's a lot of people, particularly including scientists and researchers, who are experts and actually have some integrity. So they take less money to work in government than they would going into the private sector. A lot of them then go cash out in the private sector. But there's a lot of government workers who are damn good at what they do. Of course, there's fat in the government. You could cut positions in the government. But all of this by Trump and Musk is to deflect and distract from the fact that, and Colin, if you have the chart, the real reason all of us have been screwed over the last 50 years is not because of civil servants in the Department of Education. It's not because of civil servants in the Small Business Administration or the IRS or name it. It's because of the corrupt politicians who are elected. That's why the money has been stolen. That red line, all of our money going to Kevin O'Leary and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. It's not because of fat in the government. It's because of corrupt fucks that are elected who are selling your futures and presents to the donors like Kevin O'Leary. So it's all smoke and mirrors. It's even if they cut 40 to 50% of government workers, put it to 60% of government workers, it wouldn't put a dent in that chart, because that chart has nothing to do with waste, fraud, and abuse. That is your economy right in front of you. That's the economy of the last 50 years. Republican presidents, Democratic presidents, it's a grand bank robbery that has continued. And Trump and Musk and all of these billionaire fucks want to pretend and distract and hoodwink a lot of the MAGA sheep into thinking your wages are frozen or backsliding because of civil servants at USAID. I'm not saying there's no fraud and it doesn't exist, but all of that is a side issue. It wouldn't even put a dent in the 50 years of essentially stagnant or reversing wages when you take into inflation. Secondly, he said that Elon Musk is doing this for free. On what planet is Elon Musk doing this for free? Since Trump was elected, Elon Musk's wealth has gone up $174 billion. Doesn't sound for free to me. His wealth has gone up, let me repeat, $174 billion. Today, it was reported, he just got another government contract. This one from the same Federal Aviation Administration. Him and his unelected ketamine-fueled band of teenage sycophants are cutting. They're cutting the FAA. They just got another contract from the FAA, this time for SpaceX. And by the way, Mr. Musk loves transparency. Somehow it's not reported how much the grant was for. And last week he got a contract for $400 million for armored Teslas. Just what the world needs, armored Teslas. So he ain't doing it for free. Okay. Thirdly, he says, don't worry about it. Well, that's easy for you to say, Mr. O'Leary, net worth of $400 million. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it if we have more plane crashes because there's not enough air traffic controllers. Don't worry about it if our food gets contaminated. And our food already is contaminated. It's the one thing I agree with RFK on. The shit we put on our food, it's very toxic. I agree. But I'm talking about beyond even more contamination because we're cutting agricultural workers. Our kids are already backsliding in most of the major subjects. Just cut the education department. Don't worry about it as they cut Medicaid. Don't worry about it. That's a great bumper sticker. It's just obscene. And I want the audience, and you might be saying, well, is Kevin O'Leary the worst of the oligarchs? No, he's not. I'm going to get to more. But I want to give you just a refresher, if you'll allow me, Steve. Colin, this is the clip you played at first. Kevin O'Leary, a Canadian, by the way, he's got American businesses. He had the audacity to raid the federal government for PPP loans meant for small businesses. So he got his money that he didn't need. He is worth $400 million. I don't think his businesses are small businesses. So he got a shit ton of money for the PPP program and then turned around and said, we need to end the PPP program. Let's play that clip from a few years ago.
I am a huge advocate for giving somewhere between $400 and $450 to employees, extending the unemployment, and then letting the market do price discovery on what it should fund and what it shouldn't. There's so many businesses that got money in the first PPP that shouldn't have got it at all because they are essentially zombie companies. They will never be successful. They will never be liquid. The world has changed on them. Why should I, as a taxpayer, fund that? Why not let the private markets come and support those that deserve it and let the others die as they do and should, because those assets will go through bankruptcy and be redeployed efficiently. I don't want to spend any more money guessing on winners and losers because Congress can't. There's nobody that can. Only the market can. And John knows that, and he has to admit that no one can pick winners and losers. Why should taxpayers be forced into these crammed down fundings? Makes no sense at all to me. And I'm an advocate for small business.
John, your response?
I'm speechless. First of all, I have enormous respect for Kevin and what he's accomplished. I find it interesting. I wasn't going to mention it, but 10% of the businesses that he started got PPP. I mean, 5 of his own companies 3 months ago got PPP loans. You can't just say we want affirmative action for rich people and everybody else is on your own. That is not the way it works. You can't. We are rearranging the deck chairs of the Titanic here. The ship is sinking, and we're all picking Drake.
Steve, I'd like to know, because apparently Elon Musk, President Trump, and you MAGA sycophants are watching. I don't really give a shit, by the way, if you unsubscribe. You MAGA folks, you're such snowflakes. You hear anything that isn't your already existing diet of, Trump slobbering, unsubscribe, then go away. This is not a safe space for MAGA or limousine liberals. We're going to tell you the truth. But Steve, it sure sounds like waste, fraud, and abuse to give a millionaire worth $400 million PPP loans for his businesses, which are not small businesses, and then him, because he's a sociopath, turn around and say, hey, let's cut off the PPP program because I got mine. That seems like waste, fraud, and abuse to me.
These people are parasites, man. I mean, the guy himself, the idea that they're on TV talking about this and the guy just sits there and says, your business has just scored all this money. And he's just sitting there going, yeah, whatever. It's all big fucking lie to begin with. But when you watch this shit happen in real time, they just are counting on us living and dying on meme level sentences while they go ahead and confuse the shit out of the world, while they do mass chaos, blowing through all this stuff to ultimately make us just die of fatigue while they continue to wear us out. So bottom line, I don't think that there's anything you're going to be able to do about this. This is the way the system works. People are ready for anger and rage, but they're not ready to actually take action against these kinds of people. And by action, I'm talking more Mangione than I am at the ballot box. There is no path that I know of that gets you there. Imagine going to a country club. You're not a paying member, but you go to the country club. They have a suggestion box. You pull the card out, you put a check in the box saying, I would like you to do something different. The owner of the country club looks at it, crumbles it up, laughs, and walks away. That is what it's like to be a quote unquote voter in America. That is what it's like to be a taxpayer in America. Not that any of our taxes do anything for us anyway, but the fact of the matter is we are not even providing suggestions to them. They are not listening. We are not even a factor. The only thing we are is pawns on a chessboard that they can move, throw away, trash, do whatever they want to. And because we can't organize ourselves to actually take real action, and by real action, I mean real action, they're going to keep doing it. There's absolutely not a damn thing we're going to do. We're not voting our way out of it. We are absolutely not.
And just a disclaimer for the YouTube algorithm. We are not advocating to Mangione anyone. And it's alleged. It's alleged. He's allegedly done it. But just to be clear, Steve nor I are saying go be violent, of course. So I want to also get to, that's a Canadian parasite. Let's get to Eric Prince, shall we? Eric Prince of Blackwater, who is tied to Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is the billionaire vampire who's responsible for Vice President-elect Vance, because Vance got $15 million. I mean, Peter Thiel basically made J.D. Vance. He funded all of his little, hillbilly fucking venture capital companies, the fake hillbilly, I should say, Vance. Peter Thiel gave him $15 million, helped him get elected into the Senate. Peter Thiel, if Vance is the successor to Trump, will probably pour in even more than that for Vance. Anyway, but Eric Prince, again, why I titled this The Oligarchs Are on a Rampage is they're not even hiding it anymore. They're just telling you, we are here to steal your money. And if people need to die for us to get more money, so fucking be it. This is Eric Prince at some type of interview.
Blackwater provided security for American companies. Now you have the Wagner Group providing security for Chinese enterprises, especially in Africa. Who is going to provide security for American businesses going forward?
Part of the issue with USAID, and I would say an over-reliance on U.S. government everywhere, doing stuff, wasting an enormous amount of money and not being very effective at it, is it really crowded out the private sector from doing a lot of those creative solutions. And I think the great thing about capitalism, if there's a demand signal, the private market will respond. And as American companies do start to go abroad for energy, minerals, infrastructure projects, American private sector will be there right there with them.
Great. Another question from...
You hear that? Minerals? You hear that? As Donald Trump has basically said, hey, Ukraine, we could do this the easy way or the hard way. You know what I mean? We're going to take your minerals. Before I came live, apparently, it was reported Zelensky's going to meet with Trump. But, whatever you think about the Ukraine-Russia war, I mean, it's not really, it's been kind of obvious that America under Biden and Trump want Ukraine's rare minerals. So does Russia, by the way. But correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, his quote creative solutions, if you want a history on Eric Prince and Blackwater's creative solutions, which includes armies of private mercenaries to go in and commit war crimes in off the books in Afghanistan and elsewhere. Jeremy Scahill has done incredible reporting on that. But he's basically saying, hey, we're open for business. Let's cut these government workers. Hey, let's even cut military. Just give the contracts to us. I think he renamed Blackwater because it was too controversial. And we'll go steal the minerals and kill whoever we have to do it. Am I misinterpreting it?
No, I mean, I think you see this not only in Gaza, not only in Ukraine. I think you see it in Syria. I think you see it all around the world, the same exact blueprint. And, if y'all remember going way back in the day, John Perkins and Confessions of an Economic Hitman, they've been doing this stuff forever. It's like, we can do this easy or we can do this real easy. And they come in there with $1 million. They try to bribe people. If they're not willing to take the bribe, the military comes in and does its damage. And the dupes out there that watch mainstream news are like putting Ukraine flags in their profiles because they don't realize we're out there stirring the pot to make this shit happen. Russia and Ukraine already had kind of a sweetheart deal back and forth. The breadbasket of the world right there, the breadbasket of Europe was already doing business with them. United States wanted control of Ukraine's private, real resources in their ground. So, I mean, if you're afraid to look at the United States and see it as an empire and see it as the quote unquote evildoer, the real axis of evil, if you're steady looking at all these other countries and focusing on their strong, I mean, let's be fair. Just give me a second and tell me, who is Russia's empire? Tell me all the Russian empire spanning the globe. It's the United States that is surrounding Russia with all these fucking military bases. It doesn't take much to see who the instigator is on pretty much every situation. So when the US sent the CIA in to coup up the Maidan back in 2014, I mean, the average American didn't know that. They're like, here's another yellow and blue profile picture. You know, they'll go along to get along with whatever the TV tells them. So ultimately, at this point in time, we should recognize the United States, because it doesn't produce anything at this point, is literally a snatch and grab of real resources around the world. It literally steals this stuff from everywhere because, hey, we'll either pay you nothing for it and put you in debt slavery through the IMF loans, or we'll just come down there and coup you, or we'll go ahead and bring our military in and do it all in the name of freedom.
And I'd really like to know. I'm not saying this in a condescending tone, because we do have conservative viewers watching us. By the way, we just passed 400,000 subscribers last week. We're now at 407,000. So thank you so much, all new subscribers, whether you're tree-hugging progressives, rock-ribbed eating conservatives, doesn't matter to me. I'm going to tell you the truth either way, whether you like it or not. We're not MAGA here. We're certainly not, MSNBC light here. We'll tell you the truth. They're all corrupt. Trump, Biden, all of them. But I'd like to ask MAGA, like, how is any of this helping your life? This is a genuine question. How is this raising your wages? Giving Kevin O'Leary and Eric Prince and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. I know, some of you have WWE fan syndrome where you're out there cheering the show. But how does Elon Musk and all of this gutting of waste, fraud, and abuse, how is that raising your wages? How is that making healthcare cheaper for you? How is that lowering the price of eggs, lowering housing costs, lowering rent costs, lowering electricity bills? I could go on and on and on. Lowering the cost of college. This is what, in exit polls, most voters who voted said was the top issue: inflation. How is this helping with reversing gentrification, i.e. terrorism? The only people being helped by this are the people in Trump and Musk's economic class. And that goes if you're MAGA. That goes for anyone who buys this bullshit, because you could cut 60 to 70% of government workers. It's not going to lower the price of anything, and it's not going to close the income gap. Basically, it's just going to, I guess, put more workers in the private workforce to gin up unemployment numbers, to say, hey, we got less unemployment because there's more workers in the private workforce now. Yeah, more workers making below living wage wages.
Jordan, if you think about the beauty of being an MMT guy, right? This is one of the things that we are stuck with. We have to know what the other economic
I got to interrupt you, Steve. We got a lot of new subscribers, so you can't shorthand. The beauty of being a modern monetary theory.
A modern monetary theory person, the guy who understands MMT, is that part of being an MMTer is you got to fucking know what the other schools of thought are saying too. You can't just be a dipshit like an Austrian and go, hey, they're printing money. That means it's inflation. Because see, the problem is the libertarian Muskers, that Silicon Valley dipshit that buys the Bitcoin, that whole gang of people that thinks they're going to get rid of the dollar. Okay. They literally believe every time the government spends money, it's quote unquote debasing a baseless currency, a currency that is no longer based on the gold standard. It's a free floating fiat currency. Fiat meaning by decree, meaning our government creates it freely. They don't understand that it's free floating. So there is no base to debase. But because they're so indoctrinated in libertarian idiocracy, they sit there and believe that every time the government spends, that what it's doing is creating inflation. So to them, cutting all of this spending is literally the answer, is literally their only answer, because they're stupid. They're literally the dumbest fucks on the planet. And because of that, they're ideologically, they're like spooning, they're 69ing austerity. They're literally deep throating 69, all the shit that comes with cutting spending, because their people have literally told them and sold them the idea that if the government spends, it creates inflation. That's the stupidity of the LOL libertarian.
Colin, please time code 545 East Coast. Cut deep throating austerity. I want that on a loop. That is amazing. Yes. Let me show you some more.
Give me one half a second, please.
Go.
I know that I tend to do this, but I want to make sure that I get this out. Because they believe that reducing government spending is the pathway to creating deflation. They don't fucking understand the way to create deflation is when the government spends. The government is the de facto nominal price setter. What it spends first, if it spends money on you and me to do some job, whatever our salary is becomes the de facto first dollar spent, is now the de facto pay rate. And you do that at aggregate of all the people, and that sets the base wage for labor. Okay, because the government is the one spending that first dollar into the economy. They don't know that. They think it's private banks doing it. They think it's private wealth doing it. You can't print wealth and all this other stupid shit. Well, let me tell you something. When the government puts an RFP out to BlackRock, when it puts an RFP out to Halliburton, when an RFP goes out to Elon Fuck and his SpaceX or any of the other Neuralinks or whatever, every single time Elon Musk replies back with a request, he replies back with his response to the RFP. And that right there is the contract. And that's when new money is spent. New money is spent to Elon Fuck and the idiot LOL libertarian Austrian fucks that don't know economics sit there and go, yeah, but they don't realize that if their same logic existed, that printing money, that spending that money to Musk was creating inflation, would they be behind it? Would they be for it? Do they even fucking know? Do they even care? This is the problem, because they don't understand. And because that, you sit there and watch people going, yeah, he's saving all of our tax dollars. You can see it in the chat, man. There's this one guy, I wanted to stop you so I could pull his comment up, but it's just like ridiculous. They didn't hear a word we said. The government doesn't spend tax receipts. The government deletes them. It needs you to need it, because the government can't spend money if you don't need its money, if you don't want its money. And the only reason why it's good for settling debts is because the government imposes a tax payable only in it, not in Bitcoin, not in anything else, only in the US dollar. That's how it maintains the monopoly. So guess what?
By the way,
it's all bullshit. Everything they're doing.
And by the way, coming soon, Steve and I have discussed him doing kind of a MMT for dummies, we'll call it, to kind of break it down. Because a lot of people need to understand, on the state and local level, yes, you pay taxes, you get services for it. On the federal level, all of this, saving the taxpayer dollar, it's all bullshit. This is not taxpayer money paying for, all of these workers laid off. It's not taxpayer money paying for all the wars. We would have to be taxed at 120% of our earnings to cover all of the expenses that the American government spends. It's not possible. I always use the example. The Washington Post, credit to them, reported a few years ago that the generals in Afghanistan, that 20-year boondoggle, were being ordered every day spend $300 million. Let me repeat. Every day they were ordered spend $300 million. Doesn't matter on what. So there's not enough taxpayer money. There's not enough American citizens paying taxes to cover that. All right. I want to get to Brian Stelter, CNN's media hack. He actually said the quiet part out loud. I don't think he realized that he was revealing, but let's hear him talk about, I don't know if this was his argument, but why we should continue funding this Ukraine war, because it's good for the economy. Listen.
Pretty explicit, at least it's pretty obvious what's happening. Some of this, I fear, is about illiteracy on the part of the voters, not knowing, for example, about the spending that's going to Ukraine that's actually funding American technology, right? Funding American manufacturing plants. And by the time you do learn those facts, it's too late.
But I do think...
Oh, boy. Gotta love that. So he's not an oligarch. He's not wealthy enough, but he works for the oligarchs. And what's amazing to me about that, I don't, everybody, some people on the left seem to forget that Russia invaded Ukraine. I've already, given the backstory. Of course, they had legitimate concerns, NATO encroaching. That does not absolve, invading another country So I'm not here to defend Putin. I don't think he should have invaded Ukraine. Putting that aside, the war could have ended within months. There's been plenty of reporting that Russia and Ukraine, there was desire to come to the table and negotiate an end. America stopped Ukraine from doing that under the Biden administration. America has wanted this war to continue for many reasons, including they want to get rid of Putin and basically install their own stooge in there, but also because, as Brian Stelter just said, the quiet part out loud, a massive part of our economy, which Dwight Eisenhower warned about, is the military-industrial complex. So he's saying, if we expedite the end to this war, hey, you want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse? If we close down, let's just say 500 of our 1,000 military bases around the world, if we stop bombing 7 countries at once, it's going to be a lot of layoffs because there's a lot of jobs in war.
There's going to be a lot more than layoffs. Let me tell you how this works. Once the money supply shrinks, it starts at the federal government and it works its way down to the states. Once the states start drying up, then it works its way down to the municipalities and all the people at the state. I've said this so many times and I get a jolly out of it now because the people didn't listen. But you can't do state by state healthcare because of this shit. Okay, because the states themselves don't create currency, only the federal government does. Okay, so what happens is they know that there's enough red, white, and blue. These colors don't run. Let me go ahead and have my apple pie and baseball and whatever. They know there's enough of those yucks out there that they're going to ignore it because, hey, we're going to pay for the war machine. So this is their way of getting money into the economy without actually offsetting any of that by spending on we the people, us little folks out here, right? Because they want us to remain in a dark cloud that they can't afford healthcare, they can't afford education, they can't afford roads, they can't afford green, they can't afford any of this shit. The only thing they can afford is to keep us safe. And there's enough idiots out there that think we got to keep them Muslims out of here. My God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen if we let Spanish people in? Mexicans, holy shit. So they're just dumb enough to believe that stuff, and they know it. So they spend on the military. Okay, now here's the problem. This is another thing leftists get wrong, and I am a leftist, by the way. The thing that leftists really get wrong is that by cutting the military budget, okay, you will create, without having massive spending to offset the cuts, if you don't have an ability to fill the bathtub back up with new spending, you will create a depression. You will create something that will begin mass layoffs that'll get that positive reaction cycle, kind of like climate crisis when you got the methane come up and then it keeps going back around and keeps melting and melting and melting. It's the same thing with economics. Once you start cutting the military, if you don't have a robust domestic infrastructure policy or robust domestic job program or healthcare or whatever, and by the way, if you did Medicare for all, the left is still dumb enough, I hate it, I'm one of them, dumb enough to believe that they got to raise taxes to pay for Medicare. But the reality is stuff like that is deflationary because you're going to lay off a bunch of people there too in the insurance business, just like in the military. So you've got to plan ahead for all those job losses and all that industry and all that GDP. And I don't like GDP. I don't give a shit about GDP. It's gross domestic product. It's the most indiscriminate thing in the world. But when it starts shrinking, our lives start shrinking unless there is a spending plan waiting to happen. And I assure you, Trump is not cutting all these things with the expectation of filling it back up with free college for all, a Green New Deal, Medicare for all, or better yet, an overall national health service. None of that is in his plans. So when you think about it, if they did give everyone a $5,000 check, that would be payola. And it'd be like, okay, Buttercup, this is why UBI is such a shit program. Okay, because they'll give you your $5,000 and then they're going to cut all the services. Now go out there and scavenge and find all those services on your own, little person. When in reality, we all know that when you have a group of people buying healthcare, you get a better rate. You have bargaining power. When they put you on your own to go out there and forage for yourself, you are fucked. So ultimately, we do it to ourselves because the left is begging to cut the military, and we should. But you've got to have a spending plan waiting, or you will destroy thousands, millions of lives.
I'm going to go through a bit of a lightning round since we started late. So, moving on, I think this story, surprisingly by the Wall Street Journal of all places, kind of solidifies what we're talking about. The U.S. economy depends more than ever on rich people. The highest earning 10% of Americans have increased their spending far beyond inflation. Everyone else hasn't. Maybe because everyone else doesn't have any fucking money. Look at that. Many Americans are pinching pennies, exhausted by high prices and stubborn inflation. The well-off are spending with abandon. The top 10% of earners, households making above $250,000 a year or more, are splurging on everything from vacations to designer handbags, buoyed by big gains in stocks, real estate, and other assets. Those consumers now account for 49.7% of all spending, a record in data going back to 1989. If you look at the chart, you could see top 10% of earners now account for half of all spending. Between September 2023 and September 2024, the high earners increased their spending by 12%. Spending by working class and middle class households, meanwhile, dropped over the same period. Oh, that just happens to be the same period that the child tax credit was cut, by the way, thanks to former President Manchin and Vice President Sinema and President Biden allowing them to block the extension of the child tax credit. It also is the same period where billionaires' wealth surges 3 times faster in 2024. World now on track for at least 5 trillionaires within a decade. That is from Oxfam. So I don't know, Steve. I'm not an economist, but it seems to me if the top 10% are accounting for half of all spending, it would indicate maybe the actual wealth is heavily concentrated towards that top 10%. And if you really look even between that top 10%, it's really the top 1% that are spending most of the money. Go ahead.
So let's take a second and realize that the only answer these disgraceful idiots at the Fed and on the LOL libertarian side, including your Democratic Party, the only answer these shitheads had.
Excuse me, don't say your Democratic Party.
I'm talking to everyone, like just
Thank
your
you very
Democrat,
much.
like the proverbial, the big we, right? The giant we, the proverbial we, the royal we. When you think about the Democratic Party, right? They all voted. They all were like, yeah, we got to raise interest rates to stop inflation. Okay. What did they do? What happens when you raise interest rates? Let's talk about this for just a second. Interest rates create higher interest payments to somebody. It's always payment to somebody, right? One person's spending is always another person's income, except for when it's a tax to the government. So in this case, when they raised interest rates, what was that? That was giving people who already have money, those treasury bonds, the credit companies, you name it. It was giving people that already have money a rich person's version of a basic income. Okay. So while we blew the freaking interest rate through the sky, their income rose. There was almost $1 trillion in interest income channel payments, all brand new money going to rich people. And my version of this is, I don't know that you'll ever see this in a textbook, but my version of it is, hey, this is the payola to make you guys bring your prices down. We're going to pay you off this way so you can take the prices off down here. And so it just keeps growing, because if you notice, gas out here in my area is almost $4 a gallon still. I mean, $4 a gallon is ridiculous, right? But that's what it is. And why is that? Because people are gouging, right? You saw gouging throughout the pandemic. People were literally gouging the living shit out of the economy. People with 1,000% profit. 1,000% profit. Who the fuck makes 1,000% profit? Okay, and then cries poor mouth. Well, we were watching this across industry. Okay, and it was because we gave signals. We're raising interest rates. They knew that they could raise prices, but they knew they could raise prices because they gave us a little tiny bit of money. They gave us a little tiny bit of money during the COVID payments that they never gave us the $2,000 checks for, right? But they gave us just a little bit of money, and they knew that the LOL libertarians and most of the people think when the government prints money, it creates inflation. So they went ahead and jacked their prices up. That's how it became this way. And until we disabuse people of that disgusting Milton Friedman lie, it's always going to be there, and we're always going to fall for it.
Absolutely. Before we move on to the Democrats trying out for Frozen, see what I did there?
Sorry. Tig Rahoff Can you put Tig Rahoff's comment on here for a second? It's worth the time, real quick. I promise I'll keep it short. Yeah. So Congress, when they put a bid out, like you pass a law, right? That law doesn't come with, we're going to give this to Halliburton. No, they put an RFP out for this bill. They say, here are these 10 things we're bidding for. And when those agencies or when those companies bid for those things, when Congress accepts their bid, when they actually accept the response, that is when that price is set. So you can say whatever you want, but you should really fucking understand how government works. Government sets an RFP, request for proposal, and the businesses say, hey, we'll respond to that request for proposal. And they'll have a rate card in there. And if the government says we're not paying that rate for those prices, they'll drop those prices to get the bid, or they won't get the bid. So yes, by default, that's how it works. So yes, once they accept that price, they are by default setting the price. That is the labor rate. They are accepting that as the de facto labor rate, and that's how it works. It needs to be said. So there you go.
And lastly, on the oligarchy strikes back, this is Trump's tax proposal. The Republicans are trying to push through their budget, which includes cuts to Medicaid, $4.5 trillion overall tax cut, which includes permanent extension of the 2017 Trump's tax cuts, with some other goodies attached for Musk, Trump, and the rest of their class. I don't know, MAGA. You really gotta tell me if you could click on that chart to show people, Colin. You really got to tell me this is what you voted for. I mean, literally, the richest 1%, anyone making $914,000 or above, you would get a tax cut of $36,000. If you're making between $360,000 and $914,000, you'd get a tax cut about $7,000. If you're making between $170,000 and $360,000, you'd get a tax increase, $610. If you're making between $94,000 and $157,000, you'd get a tax increase of about $1,700. If you're making between $55,000 and $94,000, you'd get a tax increase of $1,500. $28,000 to $55,000. So we're going, about poverty level at the bottom of that. You'd get a tax increase of $1,400, and the poorest 20%. If you're making, nothing to $28,000, you'd get a tax increase of $790. And this, by the way, is from the nonpartisan. It's Republicans have previously pointed to this, so if they want to shit on it, they can, but Republicans have credited the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. So this is the grand robbery here. And with the caveat that our taxes don't pay for federal money, for federal spending, for programs. I mean, it does come out of our pockets. So the absurd, immoral scam that would add $800 in taxes to people making below the poverty level, add $1,500 in taxes if you're making $28,000 to $55,000. I mean, it's just obscene. And
class war.
That is what they call theft. If Democrats need help, it's always, we need help with our messaging. No, you need help with your corruption and your policies. But anyway, it's a bank robbery. Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, all of them, even the Mitt Romneys of the world who are considered, pro-democracy, they're stealing from you. And it ain't going to trickle down because it hasn't trickled down for 50 years. The oligarchs are running wild. And you want to know something? It's going to get through. They're going to pass it. And then they're going to gaslight you like they've been doing for 30 years saying, that's bullshit. Everybody benefited. Well, no. A select group of people benefited. Your thoughts before we move on.
Well, I'll give you my thoughts, but real quick, Violet, I'm sorry, I saw your comment and I couldn't respond fast enough, but you are right. There are some deeper ways that can be done with those. Absolutely correct. I wish I could have addressed those. You're exactly correct. But in reality, this is class war. This is, I mean, for those who are on the left that are paying attention, this is class war. This is literally class war. This is oligarchy, not only on the ballot, your suggestion box. Don't even think of yourself as actually having voting power. Your suggestion box, right? And that goes right into the dumpster. They're not listening to you. You're not the point that they're trying to make. The point they're trying to make is the rich will get rich. They'll make you desperate for whatever they throw at you, and you'll take it. And some asshole will come by and say, "Don't be a fucking asshole. You just take what you get, man. Get a fucking job, you slob." Right? This is what they're setting up for. And there's always some bootlicking libertarian ready to tell you you're a lazy, good for nothing fuck. Go get a job. And this is what they're setting it up for. 100%.
Hey, but MAGA, if cutting USAID or getting rid of DEI, if that's enough for you to, cheer that you have to pay an extra $1,500 in taxes, if getting rid of the wokes is enough for you to say, "Here's my money, Elon, enjoy it as you take me," then you're kind of sad excuses for humans. All right, let's move on to some other sad excuses for humans. Quick, because I know you got to go. The Democratic Party, I mean, for all our criticisms of Bernie, there are valid criticisms of Bernie. There are not valid criticisms of Bernie. He's the only one that seems actually doing anything at the moment. I wish he wasn't going around the country trying to galvanize energy back into the Democratic Party. I think we should be trying to galvanize it outside. But anyway, an 83-year-old is doing more than the younger minority leader of the House. And frankly, even Rachel Maddow, of all people, a MSDNC sycophant of the Democratic Party, even she was kind of tepidly, kind of, sort of challenging Hakeem Jeffries last night. His answer did not exactly signify he sees that the House is on fire. Let's take a look.
The other thing that Americans are stressed out about, though, right now, is that policy doesn't feel like it's the main conversation right now. It feels like we are in the middle of a ketamine-fueled, middle-of-the-night, autocratic power grab that is rendering Congress irrelevant, that's rendering policy irrelevant, and that's rendering the rule of law an afterthought, if not a joke, to those who are planning on staying in power indefinitely without benefit of further elections. I mean, it is not about, it is about a bad budget. That's one of the things you have to contend with. But the fight here feels like it's on a different scale than the kinds of legislative point-counterpoint stuff that I think Democrats and Republicans are used to fighting over. And I think what Americans are sort of clamoring for is to hear from you personally, as the senior Democrat in Washington, in the House where the margins are so narrow, to hear from you that you understand the scale of the threat and you have ideas about how to interrupt what feels like something that we have not experienced since the Civil War in terms of the threat to our republic.
Well, it's certainly the case that we understand the scale of the threat. That can't be doubted. The CBC, which I'm a part of, definitively understands the scale of the threat. Our communities have been under siege, as you pointed out, since before the Civil War. I'm a direct descendant of those very communities. So we understand the struggle, the history, the strength of people like John Lewis, which we're going to channel. That's my experience. That's my personal experience. That's my family's experience. And so we understand.
To be clear, we're two white guys, so I certainly have admiration for civil rights warriors. But what the fuck does that have to do with what's going on right now?
He's the James Clyburn of the North. I don't take anything he has to say with any seriousness whatsoever. I want to say one thing about Bernie, though, real quickly. You know, when his good friend Joe Biden was busy shoving conservative crap down our throat, Bernie wasn't storming the country and fighting against it. He only fights against it when the other guys are in power, okay? The AOCs of the world, tuck tail when they're in power, But then suddenly they flash again. Hey, it's my turn back on stage. Hey, is this scene number 50? Oh shit, I forgot my lines. I mean, it is kayfabe all the way. Kayfabe. So I don't buy. I'm sorry.
To be fair, there was a time that Bernie did go after the Democrats.
Doesn't do it anymore.
He stood outside the White House when Obama was president, and Obama was allowing Native Americans to get the shit kicked out of them in North Dakota at Standing Rock, and he thumbed his nose in Obama's face, and he spoke out against Obama. But that was over a decade ago. You are 100% right. He palled around with his pal Biden, and he could have. I mean, obviously, Biden. To be clear, Biden was not doing what Trump is doing. There is different levels, but he definitely is a warrior when it's the Republicans doing it, and when it's the Democrats doing it, he becomes, a company man, so to speak. I would agree, but to me, when I hear Hakeem Jeffries drape himself in a comfortable identity blanket, I mean, again, I'm not taking away from the fact that black people and the civil rights warriors, but what does that have to do with the price of tea in China right now? Because you're black, you understand the struggle. If you understood the struggle, frankly, why are the Democrats even showing up for votes right now? You're normalizing a blatantly illegal process. You're normalizing a blatantly DOGE, I don't even think is actually legal. Instead of showing up for votes and normalizing this, instead of saying, we'll work with them where we can, you should be out on the streets galvanizing the troops. You should be speaking out against Musk and his fellow billionaires. The problem is he can't do that because you're literally raising money from those same billionaires, which brings me, Steve, you just can't make this up. This is from Real Sludge. Credit to their great reporting. You guys should give them a look. Sludge. DCCC scores massive Palantir and SpaceX lobbyist cash haul. Apologies to Sludge, but I can't afford to pay another for another news outlet subscription. So I'm just going to have to read from Reddit. This is from the article. But everybody check out Sludge. They do great work. In January, House Democrats' campaign arm, the DCCC, raised more than $2.5 million from the top lobbying firm for two companies closely aligned to Trump and DOGE, Palantir and SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's company, according to FEC filings. The money was bundled by lobbyists with the bipartisan firm Invariant, which held a fundraiser for the DCCC on January 22nd. Invariant's highest-paying client is Palantir, the Peter Thiel-funded government contractor whose employees help to staff DOGE. Well, Steve, you can't really, with a straight face, speak out against them if you're raising cash from their lobbyists. Now, can you?
No, you can't. I mean, let's be fair. I mean, for real, before this election, it was like, oh my God, fascism's coming to America. Where with Donald Trump comes, it's fascism to America. And what did they do? They literally rubber stamped all of his selections. They rubber stamped them. They just go them right on through. Now, there's a few of them they put up a fight, sort of, right? But they still all got through. Nobody did any filibustering.
Well, most of them, in fairness, most of them, all Democrats voted against. There were a few that Democrats voted for it. You're right.
Did they get rid of any of the filibusters or any of the other things that he could do? Is there anything remotely they could do other than performative nothingness? I mean, it defies, like, it's like watching a bad B movie and trying to pretend you're watching the news or it's real or something like that. And it's very, very hard to take the resistance seriously because there's no resistance. It is like literally they went from hair on fire, oh my God, Trump, tiny ants, orange man bad, to suddenly like freaking tail tuck nothing burgers fundraising apparatus and getting Hollywood agents to bankroll them so that they can do books or maybe become a talk show host on MSNBC or something. I don't know.
Oh, I love it when you give me a great segue. I'll go quick with this because I know you got to go feed the kids. So Morning Joe, and you might say, Jordan, who cares? Cable corporate media is shrinking in their influence. Well, not with the Democratic Party. MSNBC and Morning Joe, is basically the Democratic Party. So I got to show you clips because they are unfortunately still setting the table for these corrupt corporate fucks. Steve, I don't know if you saw this clip. You're not going to believe who Morning Joe is starting to, put out trial balloons to be the 2028 candidate. Audience, get ready. Colin, if you can play that clip.
Your latest piece in Fresh Hell has this line, and I do agree with you because I have noticed that since the election, most Democratic leaders have been stunned. One real exception to that has been Rahm Emanuel, who time and time again, with his language, strips things down to their bare essentials. And if let's say he's talking about DEI, or let's say he's talking about trans athletes, or talking about some of these hot button issues that Democrats fumble around on, Rahm, he'll have a line for it, which is the Democratic Party is popular when they're the party of acceptance. They are unpopular when they're a party of authoritarianism on these social issues, or they're the party of advocacy, shoving all of these issues in Americans' faces, even when they don't want to. Acceptance, yes. Stern advocacy, no.
Absolutely right. I mean, God, how much do I love James Carville, by the way. But Rahm, he knows how to communicate. And he actually says, the messenger is the message, because Democrats like to go on about, we have to get the message right. Well, the messenger has to be right, too. And Rahm is able to speak with clarity, which is so missing from the kind of mothballed, euphemistic verbiage, that the Democrats tend to speak in. And he says, Democrats tend to defend they defend the process instead of the results, and it's absolutely true. I mean, much though I love Elizabeth Warren, the sight of her sort of parading around with a sign saying, save our CPB, it's like, what's the next thing? Save our IRS. I mean, this acronyms and sort of, it's lame. It's lame. And Rahm is never lame. He has this amazing expertise, which is, of course, wildly out of fashion to have any expertise. But when you think that he was, chief of staff, that he was, ambassador to Japan, that he was mayor of Chicago, the guy has he's a practitioner. He's not an advisor, although he has been. He's a practitioner. He's been in the throes.
Never let a good crisis go to waste. Here you go, baby.
I cut the clip before she said, yeah, he'd be first on my list for 2028. I mean, without even getting to the whole, covering up the Chicago Police Department, murdering 16-year-old or 17-year-old Laquan McDonald. Remember 16 shots in a cover-up where he covered that up before his reelection. Putting that aside for a second, which kind of is a deal breaker for me. She said, and I'm not even a fan of Elizabeth Warren, really, but the deal breaker for you is Elizabeth Warren uses acronyms for the CFPB, which, by the way, is a pretty popular agency that President Musk and Vice President Trump are cutting. So he's incredibly clear in his messaging. How so? He's incredibly clear he was pretty much, not that Obama had a spine to push anyway, but Rahm Emanuel, as Obama's chief of staff, was instrumental to pushing us towards Obamacare rather than single payer. If that's the kind of messaging you like, fellatio for the insurance companies, instead of actually being brave and having a spine to fight for, at the time, at least a public option if you were Obama, which is what he ran on. But this is what they're pushing. Rahm Emanuel, who pushed Chicago. I was like the gentrification on steroids. He beautified the Riverwalk and 5 blocks and left the whole rest of the city to burn. He, as I just said, covered up the murder of a 16-year-old kid that his police department killed. Oh, by the way, I didn't even mention CNN just made him a contributor. CNN just made Rahm Emanuel a contributor now that he's no longer ambassador to Japan. Because Biden made him ambassador to Japan. I mean, you can't make this shit up. And the DNC just elected, I don't really know much about him. He's got to be better than the last hack. whatever his name is, Ken something, who said, no, the difference between us, we'll take billionaire money, just the good billionaire money, not the bad. I mean,
Rahm Emanuel, here's the thing with Homeboy. He is just like Donald Trump. He's got the same sharp tone. He's got the same kick you in the nuts kind of attitude. That's why he was the whip. That's why he's always been the whip. He's always been the Democratic Party whip. And, the thing is, they want to keep him behind closed doors when they don't want a Trump-like person. But he would be Trump 2.0 and that's what they've been trying. They're trying to get hey, we got to have a left podcast media like Joe Rogan for us. We've got to do it just like them. They want to emulate this. And dickhead that you showed a few minutes ago, Hakeem Jeffries, saying the pathway to winning back the House and all is to pivot to the fucking right. So, I mean, this plays right into their strategy. They have already set the stage. I'll be shocked that Buttigieg isn't part of this mix. I'll be shocked if Klobuchar isn't back. I'd be shocked if they didn't resurrect like one of the Cheneys to become a Democratic Party nominee as well. I mean, this is what they're going to do. They're going to try. They still hate the left so much that their goal is to win over the disaffected right, which doesn't want fucking Democrat light. They want the real thing. So,
Steve Grumbine, Real Progressives, tell the masses where they can find your scholarly work. Everybody must subscribe to Real Progress in Action, Real Progressives. The links are in the description. I believe you got Macro and Chill tonight. Tell people where to find it.
Yes, please. Macro and Chill is where we sit there, listen to the fucking podcast together, talk about it together, and build community. Because that's what we need. We need to educate the population. We need every one of us to understand what the fuck's going on. And these sessions at Macro and Chill are a great way to do that. Real Progressives is a YouTube channel. Real Progress in Action is a YouTube channel. Our website, realprogressives.org, which is on the screen. Definitely go. We are on Substack. Please check us out. And if you look for me on X, you can find me as Austerity is Murder. That's it, man. Thank you, Jordan.
You should change your name.
Time.
I think you should change your Twitter name to Deep Throat Austerity.
Yeah, there you go.
That was amazing. Oh, where could people? How do people find out how to participate in
Macro and Chill? If you go to Real Progressive Substack, or you go to our Macro and Cheese Twitter feed, it's Cheese Macro on Twitter. Facebook, you can go to Macro and Cheese and the letter N Cheese. Please come join us. We will put all this information. It's on our website. I hope I'm not misspeaking because I'm not the web person. But please do come. It's a webinar, folks. We sit there and we talk. We get to know each other and we talk about how we can put this information to use. I'm begging you. Doesn't do me any good to hear my own voice. I want you guys to come too. So thank you for giving me the Vine, Jordan. I appreciate it.
And 8 o'clock Eastern. 8 o'clock Eastern.
8 o'clock
tonight?
Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And for folks, the links to the YouTube channels are in the description. Subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. Subscribe. It's in the description. Have a good night. And now, before we read Super Chats, my own public service announcement here at Status Coup. A couple things. Number one, we've sent out a couple emails recently. We'll send out a few more. We are pretty close to reaching that funding threshold where we could hire another full-time reporter. I try to do everything I can. I've really been the only main reporter here, but I can't do it myself anymore. I need help. And we're through our growth, which includes 200 subscribers we've gained over the last 6 months. We gained 100,000 subscribers since December. So we're moving and shaking here. We're at 407,000 subscribers now. Along with the YouTube growth, we've gained about 1,000 paying members too. So this growth helps us stay independent. But because we do the on-the-ground reporting, we're funded through you. So we have a higher threshold than most other outlets, because we don't just sit in the studio and have costs for our studio. We have the cost of travel, equipment, paying our cameraman, paying reporters. So hotels, flights, rent-a-cars, food, etc. So please, if you are not yet a Status Coup member, please support us. We've been on the ground quite a lot the last few weeks. I'm currently working on my next on-the-ground reporting trip. I think you'll be excited. once that's announced. But we need funding. And if we could get another, I'd say 100 to 200 paying members to sign up within the next week or two, I could post a job for another full-time reporter. Another full-time reporter, meaning more content from Status Coup, more news we could break, more on-the-ground reporting, as well as freeing me up. Not that I wouldn't be doing videos or live streams anymore, but giving me more time because we'd have another reporter to actually investigate things, which is, I think I do it well. But I need time to do that. It's very hard to do investigative reporting when you're churning out content constantly and doing behind the scenes business stuff. There's a lot of behind the scenes business stuff going on. When I have news, I'll share it with you, but it's taken up a lot of my time. So please, if you're not yet a member, all we need from you could join us for as low as 16 cents a day. That's $5 a month. We have $10 a month, $20 a month, or $179 annually. But for those of you, working, living paycheck to paycheck, $5 a month. That's 16 cents a day. Please, pretty please, taking off the glasses, bags under my eyes, please, support us. And another request, if you sign up, don't forget to finish the payment step. I can't tell you how many times I look at my phone and I see a sign up, but it shows up in red, which means you haven't finished the process. So if you start the sign up, put in your information and then, your card or whatever it asks you for, and finish. Thank you. New Status Coup member Randy signed up. Deborah signed up. Jackie, you've attempted to sign up. You just haven't paid yet. And yesterday we got a couple through our website, which is what we prefer, by the way. So if you're going to sign up, we ask you to do it through our website if you can. New member AK, new member Gary, new member Christopher, Mauricio, Sam, and a couple, Craig, Patrick, and Egypt. You signed up, but you haven't paid yet. So try to finish that final step. And Margaret signed up. So thank you. $10 donation from Stacy. You could also donate to Status Coup. That helps a lot, particularly with funding the on-the-ground reporting. To support Jordan's work, Stacy said. I very much appreciate that. Let me read some super chats here. Emily, $20 CAD. I don't know if that's Canadian dollars. It's weird how it's been said that if Canada gets annexed, you'd have 40 million freedom fighters in the country, but the majority of white Americans aren't willing to act here. Why are Canadians more willing to fight this? Speaking of on-the-ground reporting and hiring a new reporter, one of the ideas I've had for a while is me or a new reporter going to Canada and doing some on-the-ground reporting, showing Americans the truth about socialized medicine, that it's not a disaster and that it works and that it makes people's lives better. I've wanted to go to Canada to do that for a while, but international reporting is a lot more expensive. So if you're interested in that, hint, hint, sign up, statuscoup.com/join, because I would hit the ground running. Not that I have a ton of contacts in Canada, but I do have ideas for how to do an on-the-ground reporting trip. It would be more expensive, too, because if we're going to go live in Canada, we have to change our data plan for our live broadcasting to international. Right now, it's just domestic. So if you want us on the ground showing you what a sane, civilized country does and provides its citizens healthcare and debunking the bullshit propaganda from the government and the media about socialized medicine, statuscoup.com/join. Corgis can fly, $2. Shiba Dog raises and lowers his index figure to get noticed. Okay. Don't know what that means, but thanks. Tony D, thank you for the $2. Love seeing Steve Grumbine here with Jordan. Thank you. Double K, $49.99. Thank you so much, Double K. That is very generous of you. Really appreciate your support. Emily, $10 Canadian. I recently bought a book, Weapons of the Weak, Everyday Form of Peasant Resistance by James C. Scott. I highly recommend it to brainstorm exactly what you may be able to do discreetly. Thank you very much. It's a great segue and reminder. My book is still out there. We the Poisoned, Exposing the Flint Water Cover-Up. If you're a new subscriber, you might not know I published my first book last year, which was a deep dive exposing the Flint water cover-up. So that's available. You could get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble online. It's not in many stores anymore, but Amazon has it online. Barnes and Noble. You could also get the audio version if you rather listen to books through Audible. Erin Brockovich did the foreword for my book. I've gotten great response to it, and I'm currently, fingers crossed, trying to work on turning it into a movie. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to check out the video I did earlier today on Trump literally soliciting pitches to create a private army of a private small army to put immigrants in military camps in America. And a little later tonight, we're going to post another clip from our reporting on the ground on Friday from the Luigi Mangione rally. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.